So when we used to scrap, my first way of scrapping was the way I did it with my brothers. With these slaps and pushing and shoving taking place. And you were surprised because you're not used to that.
No, I come from genteel folk,
It's not that we're
A
not
bit more refined.
No, it's not that we're not refined. Not sure what you're saying. I don't like this. This is why we're having this conversation. Welcome to our channel. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Jamie.
And it's awesome having you on here with us.
We've been looking forward to this launch. So if you're joining us for the very first time, I hope you'll find something here that really excites you. We're all about faith, family, and finance, and having authentic conversations that will really encourage you and inspire you in those particular areas. So we're looking forward to talking today specifically about fighting fair. We're talking about relationships and the fact that when you're in a relationship, you're going to fight, you're going to scrap. And I think one of the challenges that we've found is that when people are in relationships and they fight, they devastate each other. And that's not a good look. You're going to have differences of opinion, because something that we've always said, Sarah, is that if there's two of you in a relationship and you never disagree, then one of you is irrelevant. So there's a lot of difficult conversations that sometimes need to be had in relationships, and that's a good thing. But what we're really talking about today is making sure that when you do fight, you fight fair, and that you can still look at each other the following day and you haven't hurt each other irretrievably.
Absolutely. We are going to disagree. Relationships, by their very nature, you're going to disagree. And you're bringing a man and a woman together. We're going to disagree. We're two totally different animals, two different species, two different humans, and trying to bring us together and get us to live and get along together is going to take some doing. So there will be conflict along the way. There will be disagreements. There will be difficult conversations to be had, but it's learning how to have them in a healthy manner, how to have them in a manner that will not destroy, that will not devastate, to use your word, and that will bring a learning where learning is needed and a place of resolution, and we can walk forward together, because after we've done the fighting, I still need you in my life.
Absolutely. And I think something that we need to do, we all are used to being in work settings where we disagree with our colleagues. But for some reason, what people do is when it comes to the relationships, we don't afford each other the same level of grace. And so it's very important for us to understand when you're in a relationship, you should actually afford each other more grace, not less. And so, in our case, we've been together 29 years now. It's amazing. And when we first started on this journey, we scrapped something chronic. I mean, Sarah will tell you, she's got a lot of stories about how we used to fight.
I'd never heard, as a 19, 20-year-old and newly married, I've never heard the word domestic violence. And I think I domestic violenced you, because I grew up with boys. And I'm surrounded by brothers. So when we used to scrap, my first way of scrapping was the way I did it with my brothers. With these slaps and pushing and shoving taking place. And you were surprised because you're not used to that.
No, I come from genteel folk,
It's not that we're not...
A bit more refined.
No, it's not that we're not refined. Not sure what you're saying. I don't like this. This is why we're having this conversation. You see? But the thing is, I didn't know any better.
No.
And so that's how we had to learn and create boundaries for fighting, because back in the day, once we scrapped, anything was game. And it was die or kill or be killed. That was my mentality. Whereas Jamie was coming in and you were trying to have a conversation for us to resolve it. I was just trying to see blood and death, and I'm not the dead one. You're the dead one.
Exactly right. And so we're going to be talking today about what some of our fighting rules are. Do you want to start?
Absolutely, my king. I think it's important, one that is personal to me, and that I learned as we were coming up together in our relationship and our marriage. It's having a boundary on the words that you use on each other when you're fighting and when you're having a dispute and a disagreement. The words you use are so important. It's been said that sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. But that's not true. I changed it to sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will definitely hurt me, because words have a way of staying. Even after you've had the conversation, even after you've had the fight, You're going to remember those words. So we set a boundary of not name calling one another, denigrating each other, pulling each other down.
Yep.
Was such an important boundary that we had to place. So when we have fought over the years, there's certain things and certain names we will not call each other. We had to place a boundary so that we protect one another and we don't create and cause lasting harm.
Yeah, I mean, you're so right. And by the way, words have the ability to build, but they also have the ability to pull down and to destroy. And it doesn't matter whether you're a man or a woman, words have the same level of impact. They're very powerful. And so in our case, I know for a fact when we would scrap, you'd throw words at each other, you'd disrespect each other, and it wouldn't just be each other. You'd disrespect family members. You'd be like, your mama is this, and your dad's this, and you come from crazy stock, and so on. There were no boundaries, and it was unrestrained violence. It was insane, but it has devastating consequences. And so what happened is we just made a simple decision. Hey, listen, whenever we have these disagreements, no name calling. You're not allowed to call any names. And it was amazing how making that simple decision changed the dynamics of the relationship. So now you're able to come together, have those difficult conversations.
And deal with the main thing. Yeah. Keep the main thing. The main thing.
What are you talking about? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think another boundary that we put in place was no touching in violence. No pushing one another. No hitting. No slapping. No turning each other into a punch bag.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because if you don't put that boundary in place, that's when we have people doing a lot of harm to one another, and sometimes in some really drastic situations you kill the person that you love. What you call them, crimes of passion.
Absolutely.
When you're in a rage, and because there are no boundaries, no holds barred, and you go a little bit too far. So we placed that boundary that we do not hit one another, we do not strike one another, we don't shove one another around.
Very good one. So it was a safe environment. That's what we were effectively creating.
And so I think as couples, it's so important, guys, to put boundaries in place, because you've got to understand your own temperament. You've got to understand your nature. You've got to understand the things that make you just see red like a bull and make you just completely go off the rails. It's important to understand and study one another and put those boundaries in place. They act as a safety, as a what do you call it? As a safety net.
Yeah.
To protect you, to protect one another.
And I think we've got time for one more.
Okay.
So one of the ones that was big for us as well was making sure that we kept short accounts. Because here's the thing. A lot of times when we would fight, we would go back and we engaged in historical fights. So they had absolutely nothing to do with what was happening today. We could literally go back 5 years and talk about something that happened 5 years ago and fight about it today.
And it would be as fresh as if it had happened yesterday.
Absolutely.
And so you came up with us not rehashing past things. Yeah. And you spoke about how the scripture says God casts our sin into the sea of forgetfulness.
And he remembers it no more.
That's right.
And yet we engage in what we call deep sea diving. We dredge up stuff from the past and then we bring it into the present. And remember, we were having this conversation, Sarah and I, and I said to her, if you remind your spouse of the past more than you point them to the future, you're going to eventually lose them.
Absolutely. You build resentment.
Yeah. And so our short accounts were literally saying, I tell you what, you can't talk about anything that's older than 2 weeks. And it was tough in the beginning. It was really tough because we had all of these things playing in our minds. I remember what she did to me back in the day, and she would have the same conversations going on in her head. But when we did that, it dramatically improved the quality of our conversation because now we couldn't go back and touch that stuff. And so what we found is it even limited how long because our fights used to be epic. I mean, we'd fight for days on end. But we found the more we did this, we would literally have fights that would last never more than a day. And then before you know it, we got back together. We were able to shake hands, accept that we had a difference of opinion, but we actually moved forward as friends and not as sworn enemies. So there you go.
Absolutely. The Bible says, don't let the sun go down on your anger. And trying to make that a reality in our relationship was one of the most challenging things, because when you have no boundaries and you're unbridled, then you feel like you can have the silent treatment and allow your anger to go on and on and on, so that he understands just how upset I am with him. But when you begin to put boundaries in place, and also we are under, we're Christians, and so the word is something that really governs how we think and our conduct, and understanding that we mustn't sleep on our anger and on our bitternesses and on our resentment. That really helped to make sure that we kept the short accounts and walk together in peace. It's not easy. You practice it, but you get there.
Absolutely. You get much better at it. So that's 3 of them. We've got many more, but I think for the purposes of today, that's it. I hope that's been useful.
Please send this link to someone, get them to come and join the family, and let's do this walk together.
It's going to be an amazing journey. I'm not joking. It's going to be a lot of fun. We have a great time in our relationship, and I think you're going to feed off this energy. We're looking forward to welcoming you into our family.